The discovery of the alien artifact on Gliese 581d had been accidental, a fortunate byproduct of a mission primarily focused on mineral exploration. The planet, orbiting a red dwarf star, was inhospitable to human life, with extreme temperatures and a toxic atmosphere. Yet, it was here that the most significant discovery in human history was made. Dr. Maya Carter, a linguist renowned for her work in deciphering ancient Earth languages, had been called to the remote research station set up on the planet. She was not an adventurer by nature, preferring the comfort of academic halls to the harshness of an alien world. But the mystery of the artifact intrigued her, drawing her into the unknown. The artifact itself was a monolith, smooth and featureless, except for the intricate symbols etched across its surface. It stood about 10 feet tall, seemingly untouched by time or the planet's harsh conditions. The symbols defied immediate understanding, resembling no known language, human or otherwise. Maya, clad in her exosuit, stood before the monolith, her breath fogging the visor of her helmet. The research team, consisting of scientists from various disciplines, had been working in shifts, analyzing the artifact from every possible angle. Maya's task was to decipher the symbols, a challenge that had proven more difficult than anticipated. "Any luck yet?" Dr. Alan Finch, the lead archaeologist on the team, asked over the comms. He was a tall, wiry man with a perpetual frown, his face etched with lines from years of work under the sun and stars. Maya shook her head, though the gesture was lost under her helmet. "It's like nothing I've ever seen. The symbols don't match any known linguistic structure. They're not pictograms, alphabets, or ideograms. It's as if they were designed to be completely unique." Finch sighed, his voice crackling with static. "We need something, Maya. The higher-ups are getting impatient. They want to know if this thing has any practical use." Maya understood the pressure. The presence of military personnel among the research team was a constant reminder that their discovery was not just an academic curiosity. The artifact's potential applications, particularly in technology or weaponry, were a priority for those funding the expedition. Returning to her analysis, Maya traced her fingers over the symbols, her mind racing. She had a hunch that the key to understanding the language lay in its structure, a pattern hidden within the chaos. She decided to approach it from a different angle, treating the symbols not as individual characters, but as parts of a larger whole. As she worked, she felt a subtle vibration emanating from the monolith. Startled, she stepped back, watching as the symbols seemed to shimmer and shift, aligning themselves into new configurations. The phenomenon lasted only a few seconds, but it left Maya shaken. "Did anyone else see that?" she asked, her voice breathless with excitement and fear. "See what?" Finch replied, concern evident in his tone. "The symbols. They moved," Maya said, struggling to find the words. "They rearranged themselves." Silence followed her statement, the weight of her words sinking in. The implications were staggering. If the symbols could change, it meant that the artifact was not just a static relic, but an active technology, potentially capable of interacting with its environment. Maya's mind raced with possibilities. Could the symbols be a form of communication, responding to stimuli? Or was there a deeper, more complex mechanism at work, one that they had yet to understand? The team regrouped, reviewing the data and discussing the next steps. Maya's account of the shifting symbols could not be dismissed, and it became clear that their understanding of the artifact was still in its infancy. The military personnel, sensing potential, pressed for immediate exploration of the artifact's capabilities. Maya, however, urged Audion, "We need to understand what we're dealing with before we try to interact with it. This language, if it is a language, could be dangerous. We don't know what it might do." The team agreed, but the pressure from their superiors was unrelenting. The potential applications of the artifact, whatever they might be, were too tantalizing to ignore. Maya was tasked with accelerating her efforts, the weight of expectation heavy on her shoulders. As the days passed, Maya delved deeper into her analysis, her obsession with the artifact growing. She began to piece together a rudimentary understanding of the symbols, discovering that they seemed to function on multiple levels, both as language and as commands. Then came the breakthrough. In a moment of inspiration, Maya spoke one of the symbols aloud, her voice trembling with excitement. To her astonishment, the monolith responded. The ground around it trembled, and a small rock levitated briefly before dropping back to the surface. The implications were profound. The language, when spoken, could alter reality. Maya's discovery set off a flurry of activity within the research team and beyond. The military immediately recognized the potential for weaponization, while scientists and scholars debated the ethical implications. The power of the language, now termed reality language, was undeniable, and its mastery became the new priority. Maya, meanwhile, was filled with dread. The language, she realized, was far more than a mere tool. It was a force with the potential to reshape worlds. She feared what humanity might do with such power, and she felt a growing responsibility to ensure it was used wisely. As the research intensified, Maya found herself at the center of a storm, struggling with the moral and ethical dilemmas posed by the reality language. Her journey had only just begun, and she knew that the true challenges lay ahead. The language had the power to change everything, and the question remained, for better or for worse. The revelation that the alien symbols could alter reality sent shockwaves through the scientific and military communities. The once quiet research station on Gliese 581D became a hub of frenetic activity, with new personnel and equipment arriving daily. The focus was now squarely on understanding and harnessing the power of the reality language. Dr. Maya Carter, now the lead linguist on the project, felt the weight of the world's eyes on her. She and her team were tasked with deciphering the language's structure, understanding its rules, and cataloging the effects of speaking various symbols. The challenge was immense. The language defied conventional linguistic theory, operating on principles that were both alien and deeply enigmatic. In the makeshift lab set up next to the monolith, Maya pored over her notes and recordings. The symbols, when spoken, produced effects that ranged from the mundane to the astonishing. Some caused minor changes in the immediate environment, altering the color of objects or the temperature in the room, while others had more profound impacts, like the levitation of objects or subtle shifts in gravity. The complexity of the language was staggering. Unlike human languages, which used syntax and grammar to structure meaning, the reality language seemed to function on a multidimensional level. Each symbol was not just a word, but a complex equation, interacting with the environment in ways that were still poorly understood. "Maya, we need to be careful," Dr. Alan Finch said, breaking the silence. He had been one of the first to witness the language's effects and had grown increasingly cautious. "We're playing with forces we don't fully understand. One wrong move could have catastrophic consequences." Maya nodded, her eyes dark with concern. "I know, Alan, but we have to keep going. If we don't, someone else will, and we need to make sure this knowledge is used responsibly." The military presence at the station had grown, with officers and specialists from various branches overseeing the experiments. The interest from these quarters was intense, often bordering on impatience. They were eager to see practical applications, particularly in defense and technology. Maya felt uneasy about the direction things were heading. The language's potential for weaponization was obvious, but its ethical implications were vast. She feared that the rush to understand and control the language would lead to its misuse, with dire consequences for humanity and beyond. In an effort to establish some control over the research, Maya proposed a set of guidelines for experimentation. These included safety protocols, ethical considerations, and a moratorium on military applications until a thorough understanding of the language's effects could be achieved. The guidelines were met with resistance from some quarters, but Maya persisted, leveraging her reputation and the support of key scientific colleagues. As the days turned into weeks, Maya's team made slow but steady progress. They identified patterns in the symbols, correlations between their spoken form, and the resulting effects. They began to categorize the symbols into different classes, those that affected physical objects, those that influenced biological systems, and those that seemed to manipulate more abstract aspects of reality, such as time and perception. One evening, as the team gathered in the lab, Maya presented their latest findings. "We've discovered a set of symbols that appear to have a stabilizing effect," she explained, pointing to a series of diagrams on the screen. "When spoken, These symbols seemed to counteract the changes caused by other symbols, restoring the environment to its original state. The discovery was significant. It suggested that the language contained mechanisms for control and balance, perhaps a built-in safety feature. This lent credence to the theory that the language was designed for responsible use, a tool meant to be wielded with care. However, not everyone was satisfied with the pace of progress. The military in particular was growing restless. They wanted tangible results, applications that could be tested and deployed. Their impatience was palpable, and Maya knew it was only a matter of time before they took more direct control of the research. The turning point came when a high-ranking military official, General Harris, visited the station. He was a gruff, no-nonsense figure with a reputation for getting things done. He requested a private meeting with Maya, which she reluctantly agreed to. In the dimly lit briefing room, General Harris got straight to the point. "Dr. Carter, we're on the brink of a major breakthrough. This language could change everything: technology, medicine, defense. But we need more concrete results, and we need them fast." Maya felt a chill. "General, we're dealing with something unprecedented. The risks are enormous. We can't rush this." Harris leaned forward, his eyes hard. "We're not asking, Dr. Carter. This is a matter of national security. We need to understand what we're up against, and that means pushing the boundaries of our research. If you're not willing to cooperate, we'll have to find someone who is." The threat was clear. Maya knew that her position was precarious and that refusing could lead to her removal, or worse, the unchecked exploitation of the language by those who cared little for its ethical implications. She left the meeting with a heavy heart, aware that the situation was slipping out of her control. The reality language was a powerful tool, one that could potentially reshape the world. But in the wrong hands, it could also bring about its destruction. Determined to prevent such an outcome, Maya resolved to continue her work, but with a renewed sense of caution and urgency. She knew that she had to find a way to safeguard the language, to ensure that it was as used wisely and ethically. The stakes were too high to allow for anything less. The tension at the research station on Gliese 581D was palpable. The discovery of the reality language had transformed the quiet outpost into a hotspot of scientific and military activity. The team's cautious approach clashed with the military's urgency, creating an atmosphere of quiet but mounting pressure. Dr. Maya Carter continued her work with a growing sense of urgency. The conversation with General Harris had left her with little doubt that the military would soon take direct control of the project if they didn't see the results they wanted. Despite her reservations, Maya knew she had to produce something tangible, something that could demonstrate the language's potential without jeopardizing ethical considerations. In the lab, surrounded by computers and holographic displays, Maya and her team focused on decoding the language's structure. They were particularly interested in a subset of symbols that seemed to influence biological systems. Preliminary tests suggested that these symbols could alter cellular processes, potentially accelerating healing or even modifying genetic material. The implications were staggering. If harnessed correctly, the language could revolutionize medicine, offering treatments for diseases previously thought incurable. However, the risks were equally profound. Misuse of such power could lead to unintended consequences, such as uncontrollable mutations or other unforeseen side effects. As the team delved deeper into this line of research, they maintained strict protocols to ensure safety and control. They conducted experiments in sealed environments and monitored all changes meticulously. Yet, the complexity of the language meant that predicting outcomes was often difficult, if not impossible. One afternoon, Maya decided to test a new symbol that they believed could enhance plant growth. The experiment was simple. They would speak the symbol over a potted plant and observe any changes. As Maya uttered the alien words, the air seemed to thicken, charged with an unseen energy. The plant responded almost immediately, its leaves unfurling and its stem growing taller. The effect was mesmerizing, a testament to the language's power. The team watched in awe as the plant continued to grow, reaching unnatural proportions within minutes. But then something unexpected happened. The plant began to wither, its leaves turning brown and its stem sagging. In a matter of moments, the once vibrant specimen was reduced to a wilted husk. "What happened?" Dr. Alan Finch exclaimed, his voice tinged with shock. "It was thriving, and then this." Maya felt a cold sweat form on her brow. The language isn't just about creation. It also has the power to destroy. We must be missing some crucial component, context, perhaps, or an additional stabilizing symbol. The experiment served as a sobering reminder of the language's dual nature. It could be a tool for incredible growth and healing, but without proper understanding, it could also be devastating. Maya was more determined than ever to decipher its intricacies, but she also knew that they were racing against time. The military's impatience was growing. They had taken note of the experiment's initial success, downplaying the subsequent failure. To them, the potential benefits outweighed the risks, and they were eager to see the language applied in more practical and likely more militaristic ways. Maya was summoned to another meeting with General Harris, this time in the presence of several other high-ranking officers. The room was filled with a sense of urgency and expectation. "Dr. Carter," General Harris began, "we've seen what the language can do. The healing potential alone is groundbreaking, but we need to explore all avenues, including its use in defense. We're asking you to focus your research on applications that could enhance our strategic capabilities." Maya hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "General, the language is incredibly complex and unpredictable. We need more time to understand it fully. Rushing into weaponization could have catastrophic consequences." Harris's expression remained steely. "We understand the risks, but we cannot afford to be left behind. If there's even a chance that our adversaries could get their hands on this technology, we have to act now." The meeting ended with a clear directive: prioritize research into the language's defensive and offensive capabilities. Maya left the room with a heavy heart, knowing that her ability to steer the project was slipping away. In the days that followed, the team continued their work, but the atmosphere had changed. The military's presence loomed larger, and there was a growing sense of unease among the researchers. Maya felt increasingly isolated, her concerns about the ethical implications of their work falling on deaf ears. Despite these challenges, Maya made a significant breakthrough. She identified a pattern suggesting that the language required a form of emotional resonance to be fully effective. The symbols seemed to interact not just with the physical environment, but with the mental and emotional states of the speaker. This discovery opened up new avenues of research, but also introduced new risks. The idea that the language could be influenced by emotions added another layer of unpredictability. It became clear that the speaker's intent and emotional state could significantly alter the outcome of using the language. Maya decided to test this theory with a carefully controlled experiment. She selected a symbol believed to influence physical healing and spoke it while focusing on positive, nurturing emotions. The results were astonishing. A minor wound on her hand began to close, the skin knitting itself together in a matter of seconds. The experiment confirmed Maya's hypothesis, but it also raised more questions. What were the ethical implications of a language that could manipulate reality based on the speaker's emotions and intent? How could such a tool be controlled, or should it be controlled at all? As Maya pondered these questions, she knew that the coming days would be crucial. The world was watching, and the military was eager for results. The language's power was undeniable, but so were the dangers of its misuse. Maya felt a growing sense of dread, knowing that they were on the cusp of something that could change humanity forever, for better or for worse. The discovery that the reality language responded to the emotional and mental state of the speaker added a profound new dimension to the research. This language was not merely a tool for altering the environment, but a deeply interactive system, capable of amplifying the intentions and emotions of those who wielded it. For Dr. Maya Carter, this revelation brought not only a deeper understanding of the language's potential, but also a heightened sense of urgency and ethical concern. The military's interest in the language intensified. With the potential to weaponize emotions and intentions, the language represented a strategic advantage of unparalleled scope. Maya's cautionary stance increasingly put her at odds with the military officials overseeing the project, who viewed her concerns as obstacles to progress. In a rare, quiet moment in the lab, Maya confided in Dr. Alan Finch. The more we understand this language, the more dangerous it becomes. It's not just a matter of translating symbols, it's about understanding the very fabric of reality. And we're nowhere near ready to handle that responsibility. Finch nodded, his face lined with worry. We've opened Pandora's box. The military sees only the potential for power, not the potential for catastrophe. They're pushing us to explore offensive uses, but we haven't even scratched the surface of its ethical implications. The ethical dilemmas surrounding the language were manifold. If emotions could alter the effects of spoken symbols, then what safeguards could be put in place to prevent malicious use? How could they ensure that only those with the right intentions would use the language? And what were the moral responsibilities of those who unlocked such knowledge? Maya's concerns were exacerbated by the military's insistence on immediate results. They had begun conducting their own experiments, often bypassing the established safety protocols that Maya had insisted upon. This recklessness led to several near-disastrous incidents, including one where a test nearly caused a severe structural collapse in the facility. Faced with growing militarization, Maya decided to take a stand. She convened a meeting with her team, including Dr. Finch and the other senior researchers. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew that they were at a crossroads. "We need to draw a line," Maya began, her voice steady but firm. "Our work has the potential to change everything, but it also has the potential to destroy. We cannot allow the military to weaponize this language without fully understanding its implications." One of the researchers, Dr. Gliese Cheng, voiced her agreement. "I joined this project because I believed in the pursuit of knowledge, not because I wanted to create weapons. We need to advocate for responsible use, even if it means facing opposition." The team discussed various strategies, including the possibility of halting their research or going public with their concerns. However, they quickly realized that any drastic action could lead to severe repercussions, both for themselves and potentially for global security. The language's power was too great. It was already attracting international attention and sparking a silent arms race among nations eager to harness it. Maya suggested a compromise, proposing a moratorium on further militarization of the research until a comprehensive ethical review could be conducted. They would present their case to the military officials and, if necessary, escalate the issue to higher authorities, including international bodies. As they prepared their proposal, Maya could not shake the feeling of impending crisis. She knew that the military might reject their recommendations, viewing them as unnecessary obstacles. Yet she also knew that they had a duty to act. The ethical implications of their work were too significant to ignore, and they could not allow the potential for power to overshadow the need for caution and responsibility. The meeting with the military officials was scheduled for the next day. The team presented their findings, emphasizing the unpredictable nature of the language and the ethical risks involved. Maya spoke passionately about the need for oversight, stressing that the language's potential benefits could only be realized through careful, responsible stewardship. General Harris, representing the military's interests, listened with a stony expression. When Maya finished, he leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Dr. Carter, we understand your concerns, but national security cannot wait for theoretical debates. We need actionable results, and we need them now. Your proposal for a moratorium is noted, but we cannot afford to halt progress." Maya felt a surge of frustration. "General, this isn't just about national security. This language could fundamentally alter our world. We must understand it fully before we decide how to use it. If we rush, we risk unleashing something we can't control." Harris shook his head. "The decision is not yours alone, Dr. Carter. The implications of this discovery go beyond academic ethics. We appreciate your expertise, but the security and interests of our nation and the world must come first." The meeting ended in a stalemate. The military was unwilling to concede to the researchers' demands, and the researchers, led by Maya, were determined not to compromise on their ethical stance. The situation had reached an impasse, with both sides entrenched in their positions. As Maya left the meeting, she knew that they were entering a critical phase. The ethical dilemmas surrounding the reality language were not just academic questions, but real-world challenges with profound implications. The path forward was fraught with danger and uncertainty, and Maya realized that they might have to make difficult choices to safeguard the future. Determined to find a solution, Maya began to consider alternative strategies. She knew that they needed allies, both within the scientific community and beyond. If they could not convince the military to see reason, perhaps they could find other ways to ensure that the language was used responsibly. As she returned to the lab, Maya resolved to continue her work with renewed focus and determination. The stakes were too high to allow fear or uncertainty to dictate their actions. They were on the brink of a new era, and the responsibility of guiding humanity through it rested heavily on her shoulders. The research team at Gliese 581D continued their work under increasing scrutiny and pressure. The ethical and moral quandaries surrounding the reality language persisted, but Dr. Maya Carter and her colleagues knew that understanding the language's origins and purpose might provide crucial insights into its safe and responsible use. As Maya delved deeper into the symbols, she began to suspect that the language was more than a mere tool. It seemed to embody a form of communication that was intrinsically linked to the culture and philosophy of its creators, the aliens who had once inhabited or visited the planet. To fully grasp the language's potential and limitations, Maya realized they needed to understand the cultural context in which it was developed. Drawing on her background in linguistic anthropology, Maya proposed a new approach, a cultural study aimed at uncovering the values, beliefs, and social structures of the alien civilization. This study would involve analyzing the symbols not only as linguistic units, but also as expressions of the aliens' worldview. The proposal was met with mixed reactions. Some colleagues were intrigued, while others, especially the military representatives, viewed it as a distraction from more practical applications. Despite the skepticism, Maya received approval to proceed with the study, provided it did not interfere with the primary research objectives. She began by revisiting the initial site where the monolith had been found, hoping to uncover additional clues. Accompanied by a small team, including Dr. Alan Finch and Dr. Lisa Cheng, Maya explored the area, searching for artifacts or environmental features that might offer insights into the aliens' culture. Their efforts were soon rewarded. About a kilometer from the monolith, the team discovered a series of carvings on a rocky outcrop. The carvings depicted scenes that appeared to tell a story, figures arranged in patterns, interacting with symbols that resembled those on the monolith. The scenes suggested a narrative of creation, growth, and intriguingly, restraint. As they documented the carvings, Maya felt a growing sense of revelation. These carvings aren't just decorative, they're a form of storytelling, perhaps even a record of their history or beliefs. Dr. Finch examined one of the carvings closely. It looks like they're using the symbols in specific contexts. Maybe these scenes represent different aspects of their society: science, religion, governance. Maya nodded, considering the implications. If the language is tied to their cultural practices, it could mean that it was used with specific intentions and constraints. They might have had rules or rituals around its use, which we need to understand. The team spent several days studying the carvings, carefully analyzing each scene. They identified recurring G symbols and patterns, noting that certain symbols seemed to be associated with communal gatherings, while others were linked to solitary figures or specific locations. The recurring theme of restraint was particularly striking, suggesting that the aliens were acutely aware of the language's power and had developed a system of checks and balances to regulate its use. Maya's theory gained further support when they discovered an ancient structure nearby, partially buried under centuries of sediment. The structure appeared to be a temple or ceremonial site, with an altar at its center. On the altar, they found a series of inscriptions, similar to those on the monolith, but arranged in a spiral pattern. Dr. Cheng, who specialized in ancient rituals and symbology, proposed that the spiral represented a journey or process. It could signify a ritual of purification or preparation. The users of the language might have undergone specific rites to ensure they were in the right state of mind before speaking. The idea resonated with Maya. This aligns with our findings that the language interacts with emotions and intentions, The aliens might have had cultural safeguards to prevent misuse. The discoveries reinforced the need for caution and respect in using the reality language. Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose in her work. She saw it as their responsibility to honor the intentions of the language's creators, to use it in a way that was ethical and aligned with its original purpose. However, the military was not interested in these cultural insights. They viewed the discoveries as secondary to the primary goal of understanding the language's practical applications. This divergence in priorities created further tension, with military officials increasingly impatient with the perceived lack of progress in weaponizing the language. In a heated meeting with General Harris, Maya tried to explain the importance of their cultural findings. "General, the symbols and carvings we found suggest that the language was used with great care and deliberation. Ignoring these cultural contexts is dangerous. We need to understand the rules and rituals they had in place." Harris, however, was unmoved. "Dr. Carter, our focus must remain on tangible results. We respect your expertise, but this isn't an archaeological expedition. We need applications, not theories." Maya left the meeting frustrated and disheartened. She felt as if they were standing at the edge of a precipice, with one side advocating for ethical understanding and the other for rapid militarization. The stakes were incredibly high, and Maya feared that without a deeper understanding, they were courting disaster. Determined not to let the military's impatience dictate the course of their research, Maya continued to focus on the cultural study. She hoped that by building a comprehensive understanding of the language's origins and the intentions behind it, they could argue more convincingly for its responsible use. The team's discoveries had brought them closer to understanding the aliens' culture and the complex nature of the reality language. Yet, the challenges ahead were daunting. The military's pressure was relentless, and Maya knew that she would need all her skills, knowledge, and resolve to navigate the ethical minefield that lay before them. The language was a key to incredible potential, but also to great peril, and the responsibility of unlocking its secrets weighed heavily on her shoulders. The discoveries about the reality language and its cultural context had provided valuable insights, but they also raised more questions. The language was undeniably powerful, capable of altering reality itself. Yet, despite the progress made in understanding its structure and potential applications, much remained shrouded in mystery. The research team faced a critical unknown factor: the full extent of the language's capabilities and the potential consequences of its use. Dr. Maya Carter was acutely aware of the risks involved. The military's growing impatience with the slow pace of research only added to her concerns. The team had documented several incidents where the language had produced unexpected and sometimes dangerous results. These incidents underscored the need for caution and further study, but they also highlighted the limitations of their current understanding. One such incident occurred during an experiment designed to test the language's effects on time perception. The team hypothesized that certain symbols could alter the subjective experience of time, potentially speeding it up or slowing it down. The experiment involved a simple test: speaking a symbol while timing the growth of a plant, similar to earlier experiments. As Maya spoke the chosen symbol, the team observed the plant's growth accelerating rapidly, an effect they had expected. However, they soon realized that the experiment had unintended consequences. The entire lab seemed to shimmer, as if caught in a heat haze, and the team's perception of time became distorted. Seconds stretched into minutes, and actions that should have been instantaneous felt laboriously slow. Panicked, Maya spoke a countersymbol they had identified as stabilizing. The distortion ceased, and time returned to normal, but the experience left the team shaken. They had only scratched the surface of the language's potential, and the realization that it could manipulate such fundamental aspects of reality was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "We're playing with fire," Dr. Alan Finch remarked after the experiment. "The more we learn, the more we realize how little we understand. What if there are effects we can't even predict?" Maya shared his concerns. "That's why we need to proceed with caution. We don't know the limits of this language, or if it even has any. Every experiment is a risk." Despite these concerns, the pressure to deliver actionable results was unrelenting. The military, driven by the potential strategic advantages of the language, pushed for more aggressive testing. General Harris, in particular, was insistent that the team explore the language's potential as a tool for intelligence and warfare. Dr. Carter, we cannot ignore the realities of the world we live in, Harris argued in a tense meeting. This language could give us a decisive edge. We need to know its capabilities and how to control it, especially if other nations are pursuing similar research. Maya knew he was right about the geopolitical implications. The discovery of the reality language had likely set off a global scramble for similar technologies, with other countries eager to unlock its secrets. Yet, she also knew that their understanding of the language was still too superficial to ensure its safe use. As a compromise, Maya proposed a series of tightly controlled experiments, focusing on defensive applications such as protection and containment. These experiments would aim to develop countermeasures and safeguards, minimizing the risks while expanding their understanding of the language's effects. One such experiment involved testing a symbol believed to create barriers or shields. The team hypothesized that the symbol could generate an energy field capable of blocking physical objects or energy waves. The experiment was conducted in a secure chamber, with all necessary precautions in place. As Maya spoke the symbol, a faint, shimmering field appeared in the air, forming a translucent barrier. The team observed as small objects were thrown against it, only to bounce off harmlessly. However, when they attempted to pass a low-energy laser beam through the barrier, the results were unexpected. The beam was not just blocked, it was refracted and scattered in unpredictable directions, creating a chaotic pattern of light within the chamber. The experiment highlighted a critical issue. The language's effects were not always straightforward or controllable. The barrier had functioned as expected in some respects, but the unintended refraction of energy posed potential hazards, especially if scaled up. We need to refine our understanding of the symbols and their interactions, Maya noted, reviewing the data. Each symbol doesn't just produce a single effect, it interacts with the environment in complex ways. We can't predict all the outcomes with our current knowledge. The team faced a dilemma: continue exploring the language with the risk of unintended consequences, or halt the research until they had developed a more robust theoretical framework. The military's stance was clear. The benefits outweighed the risks, and they were willing to accept some uncertainty to maintain a competitive edge. Maya and her colleagues found themselves increasingly isolated, both intellectually and ethically. They were committed to understanding the language, but they also felt a profound responsibility to ensure it was not misused. The unknown factor, the full scope of the language's capabilities, remained a persistent challenge, a reminder that they were navigating uncharted territory. Determined to find a path forward, Maya considered reaching out to the broader scientific community. She believed that pooling resources and knowledge could accelerate their understanding and provide a more comprehensive ethical framework for the language's use. However, she knew this would be a controversial move, potentially exposing their research to international scrutiny and competition. As the team debated their next steps, Maya received an unexpected message. A renowned linguist and anthropologist from a prestigious university had been following their work and offered to collaborate. The offer was both an opportunity and a risk. It could provide the fresh perspectives and expertise they needed, but it also meant sharing their findings with an outsider, potentially complicating the already delicate situation. Maya decided to proceed cautiously. She arranged a secure meeting with the linguist, Dr. Elias Voss, to discuss the potential for collaboration. Voss brought a wealth of experience in studying ancient and alien languages, and his insights could prove invaluable. In their first meeting, held via encrypted communication channels, Voss expressed both excitement and concern about the reality language. "The implications of your work are staggering," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "But we must tread carefully. This language could redefine our understanding of reality itself, and with that comes tremendous responsibility." Maya agreed, emphasizing the need for a rigorous ethical framework. "We need to understand not just the mechanics of the language, but its philosophical and cultural underpinnings. We can't afford to treat this like any other technological advancement. The collaboration with Voss marked a new phase in their research. Maya hoped that by broadening their intellectual base, they could better navigate the unknown factors and ethical dilemmas they faced. Yet, she knew that time was running out. The world was watching, and the stakes were higher than ever. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but Maya was determined to see it through, driven by a commitment to responsible discovery and a fear of the unknown. The partnership with Dr. Elias Voss brought a renewed sense of focus and hope to Dr. Maya Carter and her team. Voss's expertise in alien languages and cultures provided valuable new perspectives, helping to contextualize the reality language within a broader philosophical and ethical framework. However, even as the scientific understanding deepened, the pressure from military and government stakeholders continued to mount. General Harris, representing the military's interests, was increasingly vocal about the need for practical applications. The discovery of the reality language had sparked a quiet but intense arms race, with nations around the world covertly exploring similar research. The military saw the language not just as a potential weapon, but as a means to maintain global supremacy. One morning, Maya was summoned to a high-level briefing with General Harris and other senior military officials. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense, with a palpable sense of urgency. Harris wasted no time in outlining the situation. Dr. Carter, we've received intelligence suggesting that other nations are making significant progress in similar linguistic research. Harris began, his tone clipped and serious. We cannot afford to fall behind. Our national security depends on understanding and controlling this language, especially its potential for defensive and offensive capabilities. Maya listened, her concern growing. The reality language, with its ability to alter reality, represented an unprecedented power. The idea of it being weaponized on a global scale was terrifying. General, I understand the strategic importance, Maya replied carefully. But we still don't fully comprehend the language's effects or limitations. Accelerating our research without adequate safeguards could lead to catastrophic outcomes. Harris leaned forward, his gaze intense. We've seen the results of your recent experiments. Defensive applications, such as barriers and shields, are promising, but we need to go further. We're particularly interested in its potential for intelligence gathering, psychological operations, and even direct conflict resolution. Maya felt a chill at the implications. The military was contemplating using the language to influence thoughts, perceptions, and even reality itself in combat scenarios. The ethical and moral ramifications were staggering. We're not ready to explore those areas, Maya insisted. The language interacts with emotions and intentions in ways we don't fully understand. The risks of unintended consequences are too high. Harris's expression hardened. Dr. Carter, this is not just about scientific curiosity. This is about survival. If other nations unlock this language's potential before we do, the balance of power could shift dramatically. We need to secure our position, and that requires comprehensive research, including areas you're hesitant to explore. The meeting ended with a clear directive: prioritize research into the language's potential military applications. Maya was left feeling frustrated and conflicted. She understood the geopolitical realities, but was deeply troubled by the ethical implications of their work. Returning to the lab, Maya shared the military's demands with her team. The response was mixed. Some researchers were uneasy, sharing Maya's concerns, while others were resigned to the realities of their funding and the expectations that came with it. Dr. Alan Finch, ever the voice of caution, expressed his worries. Maya, we're venturing into dangerous territory. If we allow the military to dictate the direction of our research, we could be complicit in something we can't control. Dr. Gliese Cheng, though concerned, was more pragmatic. We're scientists, but we're also realists. The military has the resources we need, and we can't ignore the strategic implications. Maybe we can find a middle ground, focusing on defensive and protective applications that align with our ethical concerns. Maya appreciated their input, but knew that the situation was increasingly out of their hands. The military's agenda was clear, and their influence was growing. They had to navigate this delicate situation carefully, balancing the need for progress with the imperative of ethical responsibility. As the team continued their work, Maya sought to maintain some control over the research direction. They focused on refining their understanding of the language's defensive capabilities, such as creating barriers and counteracting harmful effects. However, under Rasher from the military, they also began exploring more controversial areas, including symbols that appeared to influence mental states and perceptions. These experiments were conducted with extreme caution and under strict protocols. The team documented their findings meticulously, noting both intended and unintended effects. The results were sobering. While some symbols could indeed influence perception, they did so in unpredictable and often unsettling ways. Subjects reported feelings of disorientation, altered consciousness, and in some cases, severe anxiety or distress. Maya was particularly troubled by the psychological experiments. The language's ability to affect the mind was profound, raising questions about autonomy, consent, and the ethical boundaries of their work. The potential for misuse was clear, and Maya feared that they were treading a path that could lead to serious ethical breaches. In private, Maya consulted with Dr. Voss, seeking his perspective on the ethical dilemmas they faced. Voss, who had seen similar challenges in his work with ancient cultures and powerful artifacts, was sympathetic but also realistic. "Maya, you're right to be concerned," Voss said, his voice calm but firm. "The power we're dealing with here is unprecedented, and the ethical implications are vast. But you also have a responsibility to guide this research. If the military is determined to explore these areas, it's better that you're involved, providing oversight and advocating for ethical use." Maya nodded, appreciating his support. "But how do we ensure that our research isn't misused? Once we understand this language, we can't unlearn it. The knowledge itself is dangerous." Voss sighed. "That's the challenge of any powerful technology or knowledge. We can't control how others will use it, but we can strive to set ethical guidelines and advocate for responsible stewardship. It's not a perfect solution, but it's the best we can do." With Voss's advice in mind, Maya resolved to continue their work with a focus on ethical considerations. She advocated for the inclusion of bioethicists and psychologists in their team to help navigate the moral complexities of their research. This proposal was met with resistance from some quarters, but ultimately received approval, providing a semblance of oversight and ethical scrutiny. As the weeks passed, the team made further progress in understanding the reality language. They identified additional symbols and refined their understanding of how the language interacted with both the physical and mental realms. However, the unknown factor, the unpredictable and potentially dangerous consequences of using the language, remained a constant concern. Maya knew that they were walking a tightrope, balancing scientific curiosity, ethical responsibility, and the military's strategic interests. The stakes were incredibly high and the future uncertain. The military's agenda loomed large, pushing them toward applications that could reshape the world in profound ways. As she looked ahead, Maya felt the weight of her responsibility keenly. The reality language was a gift and a curse, a tool that could heal or destroy, depending on how it was used. The challenge was not just to understand it, but to ensure that it was used wisely, a task that seemed increasingly daunting as the military's influence grew. The path forward was fraught with peril, but Maya knew that she could not turn back. The world was watching, and the choices they made would have consequences far beyond the confines of their research station. The reality language's potential was both exhilarating and terrifying. As the research continued, the weight of the ethical implications became increasingly burdensome for Dr. Maya Carter. She was not alone in her concerns. Several members of her team, as well as external experts like Dr. Elias Voss, shared her unease. However, the military's agenda loomed over the project, pushing for rapid advancements and applications, often with little regard for the moral quandaries involved. Maya found herself at a crossroads. The military's demands were growing more insistent, with frequent directives to explore the language's more controversial capabilities, such as psychological manipulation and direct influence on human perception. These experiments, conducted under tight security and with minimal transparency, often left Maya feeling complicit in something fundamentally wrong. One evening, after another long day of experiments, Maya convened a private meeting with Dr. Alan Finch, Dr. Lisa Cheng, and a few trusted colleagues. The purpose was clear: to discuss the growing ethical concerns and to plan a course of action that could counterbalance the military's influence. "We're reaching a point where we need to make a stand," Maya began, her voice steady but tinged with frustration. "The military is pushing us toward applications that could have dangerous and far-reaching consequences. We need to establish boundaries and ensure that this knowledge is used responsibly." Dr. Finch, always a cautious voice, nodded in agreement. "The psychological experiments are particularly troubling. The language's ability to alter perception and mental states could be abused in ways we can't even fully anticipate. We need to advocate for strict ethical oversight." Dr. Cheng, though more pragmatic, also voiced her concerns. "I agree, but we need to be realistic. The military isn't going to back down. They're driven by the need to secure an advantage, and they're not going to let ethical concerns stand in the way." The group discussed various strategies, including appealing to higher authorities, involving international bodies, or even whistleblowing to the media. However, each option carried significant risks, both personal and professional. The project was highly classified, and any breach of protocol could result in severe consequences, including legal action and professional ruin. After much deliberation, Maya proposed a more covert approach. They would continue their research, but document all findings meticulously, especially those related to the ethical and unpredictable aspects of the language. This documentation would serve as a safeguard, providing a detailed record of the team's concerns and the military's involvement. "We need to build a case for ethical oversight," Maya explained. "If we can present a comprehensive record of our findings and concerns, we might be able to convince those in power to impose stricter controls or even involve international regulators." The group agreed to the plan, though the risks were clear. They would be walking a fine line, balancing their roles as researchers with their moral obligations. The team members were committed to their work, but also to ensuring that the language was not misused. As they implemented their plan, tensions with the military escalated. General Harris and his associates became increasingly frustrated with the perceived slow pace of research and the team's focus on ethical considerations. They pressured Maya and her colleagues to prioritize military applications, particularly those that could be used in intelligence and psychological warfare. Maya resisted, using the pretext of the language's complexity and the need for caution. However, she knew that this tactic could only buy them so much time. The military's patience was wearing thin, and there were rumors of other projects, potentially in other countries, advancing rapidly in similar research. In a private meeting with Dr. Voss, Maya confided her fears and frustrations. Voss, a seasoned scholar with a deep understanding of the ethical dilemmas posed by powerful knowledge, offered his support and advice. "Maya, you're in a difficult position. But what you're doing is important," Voss said. "The ethical record you're keeping could be crucial, not just for accountability, but for guiding future research. This language isn't just a tool, it's a reflection of how we choose to wield power. Your work could set a precedent for responsible scientific discovery." Encouraged by Voss's words, Maya continued her quiet resistance. She also began reaching out discreetly to other scientists and ethicists outside the project, seeking to build a broader coalition that could advocate for responsible use of the reality language. This coalition included scholars from various disciplines, linguistics, anthropology, ethics, and law, who shared a commitment to ensuring that the language was studied and applied ethically. As the network grew, so did the risks. The military was vigilant, and any sign of unauthorized communication or leaks could lead to severe consequences. Maya and her colleagues took extensive precautions, using encrypted channels and meeting in person when possible to avoid detection. Despite the challenges, the coalition made progress. They drafted a comprehensive report outlining the ethical risks and proposing a framework for oversight and regulation. This report included detailed accounts of the military's involvement and the pressure to prioritize weaponization, as well as the team's concerns about the language's unpredictable effects. The coalition planned to present this report to key government officials and international bodies, hoping to spur action before it was too late. However, the timing was critical. The military's agenda was advancing rapidly, and there were indications that they might soon bypass the researchers altogether, taking control of the project for their purposes. As the deadline for the report's release approached, Maya faced a personal dilemma. She knew that if the report were made public, it could lead to backlash against the military and potentially halt the project. However, it could also result in severe repercussions for her and her colleagues, including loss of their careers and possible legal action. In a moment of introspection, Maya weighed the risks and benefits. She reflected on the responsibility that came with such powerful knowledge and the potential consequences of inaction. Ultimately, she decided that the ethical imperative to prevent misuse outweighed the personal risks. Maya and the coalition members finalized the report and prepared to release it to select government officials, with a plan to involve international regulators and ethical bodies. They knew that the fallout could be significant, but they were committed to ensuring that the reality language was studied and applied responsibly. On the eve of the report's release, Maya felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve. The military's agenda was clear, but so was her duty as a scientist and a steward of knowledge. She was determined to see the truth come to light, regardless of the consequences. The battle for ethical oversight had only just begun, and Maya was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stakes were too high to allow fear to dictate their actions, and she knew that they were fighting for something greater than themselves, the responsible and ethical use of one of the most powerful discoveries in human history. The release of the coalition's report on the reality language was a calculated risk, one that Dr. Maya Carter and her colleagues hoped would catalyze a broader discussion on the ethical and practical implications of their discovery. The report, meticulously documented and backed by a diverse group of scientists, ethicists, and legal experts, was intended to raise awareness and prompt action from governmental and international bodies. When the report was finally sent to key officials and select media outlets, the reaction was immediate and explosive. News of the reality language, with its potential to alter reality and influence human perception, captured the public's imagination. The report highlighted the dangers of weaponizing the language and the ethical dilemmas it posed, drawing widespread attention and sparking intense debate. Media coverage ranged from sensational headlines to in-depth analyses. Major news networks ran stories on the implications of the language, featuring interviews with experts who discussed both the scientific marvel and the potential risks. Public figures, including politicians, activists, and intellectuals, weighed in on the issue, calling for transparency and responsible stewardship of such powerful knowledge. Maya watched the media coverage with a mix of relief and apprehension. The report had succeeded in bringing the issue to the forefront of public consciousness, but it also exposed her and her colleagues to scrutiny and potential backlash. The military's reaction was swift and severe. General Harris and other officials condemned the release of the report, calling it irresponsible and a breach of national security protocols. They accused Maya and her colleagues of jeopardizing the nation's strategic interests and potentially exposing sensitive information to adversaries. The situation quickly escalated. Government agencies launched investigations into the leak, and Maya and her team were placed under intense scrutiny. There were threats of legal action, job suspensions, and other punitive measures. The military moved to assert greater control over the project, tightening security and restricting access to the research. Despite the mounting pressure, public support for Maya and her colleagues grew. The release of the report had resonated with a wide audience, many of whom were concerned about the ethical use of advanced technologies. Social media campaigns, petitions, and public demonstrations emerged, demanding greater transparency and ethical oversight in the study and use of the reality language. In response to public pressure, several prominent political leaders called for hearings and inquiries into the military's handling of the project. There were growing calls for international collaboration to regulate the research and ensure that the language was not used irresponsibly. Amidst the public outcry, Maya and her colleagues faced personal and professional challenges. They were summoned to testify before government committees, where they defended their actions and emphasized the ethical concerns that had driven them to release the report. Maya, in particular, became a prominent public figure, often seen as the face of the ethical resistance to the militarization of the reality language. During one particularly heated hearing, Maya addressed a panel of lawmakers, her voice steady and resolute. The reality language represents a profound discovery, one that has the potential to reshape our understanding of reality and our place in the universe. But with great power comes great responsibility. We must ensure that this knowledge is used for the betterment of humanity, not for its detriment. We cannot afford to let fear and the pursuit of power dictate the future of this research. Her testimony was met with applause from some quarters and skepticism from others. The hearings revealed deep divisions within the government and military about how to proceed. Some advocated for a more cautious and ethical approach, while others pushed for continued research with an emphasis on maintaining a strategic advantage. Internationally, the reaction was mixed. While some countries called for a moratorium on the research until ethical guidelines could be established, others saw the reality language as an opportunity and sought to advance their own programs. The release of the report had effectively internationalized the issue, making it clear that the implications of the language extended far beyond national borders. As the debate raged on, Maya and her colleagues continued their work, albeit under much tighter restrictions. They focused on defensive and protective applications of the language, seeking to develop safeguards and countermeasures that could prevent misuse. This work was essential both for ethical reasons and to maintain their credibility and relevance in the ongoing discussions. Maya also deepened her collaboration with Dr. Elias Voss and other members of the coalition, exploring ways to promote responsible use of the reality language globally. They advocated for the establishment of an international regulatory body composed of scientists, ethicists, and legal experts to oversee research and applications. This body would be tasked with developing guidelines, ensuring compliance, and facilitating cooperation among nations. The idea gained traction, and several countries expressed interest in participating. The formation of such a body was seen as a necessary step in addressing the challenges posed by the reality language, balancing the need for scientific exploration with the imperative of ethical responsibility. Despite these efforts, the situation remained fraught with uncertainty. The military's agenda, coupled with the interests of other nations, meant that the reality language was a coveted asset, one that could easily be weaponized or exploited. The ethical dilemmas and potential dangers were ever present, casting a shadow over the promising aspects of the research. As Maya navigated this complex landscape, she found herself reflecting on the broader implications of their discovery. The reality language was not just a scientific breakthrough, it was a test of humanity's ability to handle profound power responsibly. The debates and struggles surrounding its use were, in many ways, a reflection of the deeper questions about human nature, ethics, and the future of society. The public awakening, spurred by the release of the report, had brought these issues to the forefront. It had galvanized people to think critically about the role of technology in their lives and the responsibilities that came with knowledge. For Maya, this was a hopeful sign, a reminder that despite the challenges, there was a collective desire to seek the greater good. As the chapter of public scrutiny and debate unfolded, Maya remained steadfast in her commitment to ethical research and responsible stewardship. The path ahead was uncertain, but she was determined to continue advocating for a future where the reality language and the knowledge it embodied was used wisely and justly. The stakes were too high to do otherwise, and Maya knew that the journey they had embarked on was far from over. As the controversy surrounding the reality language continued to unfold, Dr. Maya Carter and her team found a surprising opportunity for a new direction in their research. The focus had been heavily on the potential military applications and the ethical dilemmas of its use. However, Maya and her colleagues realized that they had only scratched the surface of understanding the deeper cultural and philosophical aspects of the language. Amidst the global debate, a proposal emerged from an unexpected source. A coalition of anthropologists and linguists from several leading universities suggested a cultural exchange project. This initiative aimed to explore the origins and intended uses of the reality language by studying any potential cultural artifacts or records that might provide insights into the civilization that created it. Maya saw this as a crucial opportunity to broaden their understanding and to steer the research toward more peaceful and constructive applications. The project promised to bring together a diverse group of experts, not only from linguistics and anthropology, but also from fields such as ethics, philosophy, and even theology. The goal was to uncover the values, beliefs, and societal structures of the alien culture that had developed the language, hoping to find guidelines or principles that could inform its responsible use. With the international community's attention firmly on the reality language, the proposal for the Cultural Exchange Project quickly gained support. Several countries, eager to be seen as leaders in ethical scientific research, offered to fund and host portions of the research. The project was framed as a global effort to understand the implications of the language in a broader context, beyond its immediate technological applications. Maya, Dr. Elias Voss, and other key figures in the coalition were tasked with leading this ambitious initiative. They began by assembling a team of scholars and researchers from various disciplines, all united by a common goal: to decipher not just the linguistic symbols, but the cultural ethos that had shaped them. The project started with a renewed examination of the alien artifacts, including the monolith and the carvings previously discovered near the research station. The team meticulously documented each symbol and its potential meanings, cross-referencing them with known human languages and cultural practices to find any patterns or parallels. One of the key findings came from a deeper analysis of the spiral inscriptions found at the ceremonial site near the monolith. The spiral, a common motif in many human cultures symbolizing cycles, journeys, or spiritual growth, seemed to represent a similar concept in the alien language. The team hypothesized that the spiral could indicate a process of initiation or preparation, possibly linked to the responsible use of the language. Dr. Gliese, who specialized in ancient rituals, suggested that the inscriptions might depict a series of ethical guidelines or rites of passage. These symbols could represent a journey of understanding, perhaps a way to teach and control the use of the language, she proposed. It suggests that the aliens were aware of the language's power and sought to ensure it was used wisely. As the research progressed, the team uncovered more about the potential ethical and philosophical frameworks that might have governed the use of the reality language. They found indications that the language was deeply intertwined with the aliens' worldview, which appeared to emphasize balance, harmony, and the responsible exercise of power. This discovery was particularly significant in the context of the ongoing debates about the ethical use of the language. It suggested that the aliens had not only developed the language as a tool, but had also embedded within it a set of principles intended to guide its use. These principles could provide a valuable foundation for modern-day guidelines and regulations, offering a blueprint for how humanity might responsibly wield such power. The project's findings began to shape the public discourse around the reality language. Media coverage shifted from a focus on the potential dangers and military applications to a broader discussion about the ethical responsibilities of scientific discovery. The idea that the language was part of a larger cultural and ethical system resonated with many, highlighting the importance of understanding the full context of the technology before rushing to use it. Maya found herself increasingly in demand as a speaker and commentator, invited to conferences, academic forums, and even international summits. She spoke about the importance of ethical stewardship and the lessons that could be drawn from the Cultural Exchange Project. Her message was clear. The reality language was not just a tool to be used, but a legacy to be understood and respected. The Cultural Exchange Project also paved the way for increased international cooperation. Several countries that had initially been wary of sharing research findings or collaborating on sensitive technologies began to open up, seeing the project as a way to engage with the global scientific community in a positive and constructive manner. This cooperation was crucial, as it fostered a more inclusive and transparent approach to studying and regulating the reality language. Despite these positive developments, challenges remained. The military's interest in the language's strategic applications had not waned, and there were still factions within various governments pushing for accelerated research into its potential uses in intelligence and defense. However, the Cultural Exchange Project had shifted the narrative, emphasizing the need for caution, understanding, and ethical consideration. As the project continued, the team explored new avenues of research, including the possibility that the aliens had intended the language to be used in specific contexts or by certain individuals who had undergone extensive training or initiation. This idea suggested a built-in system of checks and balances, a way to prevent misuse by ensuring that only those who were adequately prepared and ethically grounded could fully harness the language's power. Maya and her colleagues began to advocate for a similar approach in the modern context, proposing that any use of the reality language be restricted to those who had undergone rigorous training and ethical education. They argued that just as the language's creators had recognized the need for responsible use, so too must humanity develop a framework for ensuring that this powerful tool was not abused. The Cultural Exchange Project also inspired new lines of inquiry into the broader implications of the reality language. Philosophers and ethicists joined the conversation, exploring questions about the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, and the ethical boundaries of technological advancement. These discussions enriched the scientific research, providing a deeper and more nuanced understanding of the language and its place in the world. For Maya, the journey had been transformative. What had begun as a purely linguistic and scientific endeavor had evolved into a profound exploration of ethics, culture, and the human condition. The reality language had become a symbol of the dual nature of knowledge, its potential to create and destroy, to illuminate and obscure, to empower and corrupt. As the chapter of the Cultural Exchange Project drew to a close, Maya looked to the future with cautious optimism. The work they had done was just the beginning, a foundation upon which future generations would build. The reality language was a reminder of the responsibilities that came with discovery, a call to use knowledge not just for power or profit, but for the betterment of all. The public awakening had sparked a movement, one that sought to balance the pursuit of knowledge with the imperatives of ethics and responsibility. It was a movement that Maya hoped would endure, guiding humanity toward a future where the wonders of discovery were matched by a commitment to justice, wisdom, and care. As she prepared for the next phase of her work, Maya knew that the story of the reality language was far from over. It was a story that would continue to unfold, shaped by the choices of those who studied, understood, and wielded its power. And in that unfolding, Maya saw the potential for a new era of exploration, guided by the lessons of the past and the promise of a more ethical and enlightened future.